the gritty criminal drama follows Abalola, Ife, and Gift, three pals, as they make their way through the streets of JAY-LIFETV, which are overrun with warring gangs with connections to powerful government figures. The public is thought to be willing to bow to the authority of the gangs because they rule the streets. Abalola was raised in JAY-LIFETV and learned how to live there as a child. He was the late king of the streets, Ogun Mola. Abalola was happy of the money he and his companions Gift and Ife were able to take out of the wealthy woman's bag that they had stolen. The local Alenian, Ale Baba Adakanal, was to receive a percentage of the robber's proceeds as per the law of robbery. He was in charge of neighborhood politics and was the owner of the people, but he had just lately made the decision to retire. Akinwale, one of his goons, was to take his position, according to him. Baba was certain that Akinwale shouldn't resign, despite his desire to do so. For a guy of the streets, a political career is the logical next step, and Baba urged Akinwale to follow suit. Akinwale was unable to object to the Alenian's choice. The woman who misplaced her handbag later sought assistance from Baba. She got out of her seat and demanded the immediate return of her bag as Abalola came in to pay his share to the Alenian. Abalola, however, was no typical youngster. He told Baba that the wife had called the police. The Alenian should be approached first for assistance, not the police, as per the unwritten laws of the street. Abalola's mental clarity really astonished Akinwale, and the young man instantly understood that he was destined for greatness. When Abalola's mother saw her son hanging out with the gangsters, she was indignant. She was not prepared to lose her son in a gang conflict after her husband was fatally shot by his adversaries. Abalola, however, made the choice to stick with Akinwale and his soldiers. Being a gangster gave him a sense of pride and respect. As he knocked on Akinwale's door, the latter quickly took Abalola under his wing. Akinwale alias Ninalo political patriarch Oloragun. Working for him and looking after those who didn't back him were Nino and Kazim. Despite being a criminal, Nino had a good heart. He had a heart for the common people and did everything in his power to help them. Abalola admired his father, and Nino was the one who instilled in him the value of education. Abalola should seek a career instead of becoming a thug like him, according to Nino. Yet shortly after Nino was killed in the street, Abalola's goal was crushed. Nino and a mobster named London got into a fight. He had a reputation for smuggling individuals, and Nino had asked him to release one of the girls he had unjustly held captive. He was killed the following day in broad daylight. Almost 100 individuals killed in a gang war that started after Nino's death. A monarch is never buried alone in Yoruba country, and the fact that Nino's death resulted in a huge carnage. Once his father passed away, Abalola began working for Kazim. He frequently felt bad about extorting unlawful taxes from helpless store owners, but he had no other choice. Abalola's schooling was unimportant to Kazim. All he wanted was to use him and his pals as a means of generating more income. While Abalola worked for Kazim and his boss Oloragun, a new candidate named Bamadil Alanrawaju was running for governor of Lagos State. She was taking on the PND party, which has ruled Lagos since 1999. Kazim was terrified by her outspoken criticism of the party's involvement in corruption. Kazim vowed that it would become increasingly bloody over time as the elections drew near. Tani, Kazim's daughter, had just returned from the United States when Abalola was requested to look out for her. In order to depart Lagos after the election, Abalola saved money. He desired some calm now because he was tired of leading a violent life. Tani had been Abalola's childhood sweetheart, and he was utterly enamored of her when he finally met her after a 15-year absence. Tani was taken to the apartment Kazim had purchased for her, and he was astounded by how lovely it was. It also helped him understand how individuals like Kazim exploited the poor for financial gain. He purchased an apartment big enough to house 30 individuals in need. He had grown tired of Kazim and Tani's exploitation of others and their haughty attitude toward their wealth. Later, after understanding how callous she had been all along, Tani apologized. While Kazim was making love to Tani, Panama, Ife, his best buddy, was in danger. When Kazim entered a barbershop and killed Tajudeen, also known as London, for supporting Bamadil Olanrawaju, Panama had been with him. Later, because he could tie them to the murder, Kazim urged Panama to kill the barber. Abalola had agreed to accompany Panama to the barber's house in order to persuade him to leave Lagos, but he got sidetracked by Tani. The barber was ordered to leave right away when Panama entered the flat alone himself. He was killed by another man who entered the flat shortly after he had gone. A bunch of men ambushed Panama as he was strolling alone along the street, and they butchered him to death. Abalola was resolved to exact retribution when he learned about it. Abalola thought that Panama had been killed by Ikin, Kashopa Basegun, Ikin's son, and their soldiers. In order to get revenge for Ikin's death, Abalola pursues Ikin's group. Abalola attacks Cash following a deadly battle that results in numerous fatalities, only to be hit in the head, knocked unconscious, and bound to a chair. When he awakens, Ikin welcomes him and urges him to calm down. Abalola, however, mocks him for betraying Ife and killing him. Cash and Ikin denied killing Panama. Abalola had little regard for them because they joined London's group after Nino's passing. Then Ikin reminded Oba that the Alenian, Kazim, who had dispatched Panama to kill the barber, was responsible for London's death. Ikin talked about the matter with Olorigun after learning about the barber and requested that he approve Kazim's execution. In a meeting that Olorigun set up with Ikin and Kazim, Kazim claimed that he was not to blame for London's death because London had drawn the gun first, causing Panama. Kazim gave Terrible the order to kill Panama, and his daughter would have been abducted if he hadn't succeeded. Oba was resolved to take Kazim's life once he realized that Kazim had given the order for Panama's execution. Since that his gang wanted Kazim out of the situation as well, Ikin offered Oba the backing of his group. Terrible was abducted by Oba and his men, who then forced him to reveal Kazim's whereabouts. Terrible was prepared to reveal all the information he had as he pleaded for his life, but Oba was not interested in granting the traitors any mercy. He discovered Olorigun had given Kazim the order to kill his father before killing Terrible. The Io masqueraders arrived that day to send London's ghost home, and Oba and his men joined the crowd and opened fire. Oba caught up with Kazim while he was attempting to escape through the terrace. Oba discovered during their altercation that Nino's murderer was Kazim rather than London. By killing Nino, he obtained all the authority and support that Nino possessed. Abalola was compared to his father by Kazim, who called him a stupid person who was only motivated by morality. Kazim engages in a fight, which he eventually wins, and afterward orders Abalola to greet his father on his behalf. He grabs his revolver. Gift bursts through the door, shoots Kazim numerous times, and he falls backward off the rooftop onto a car in the street below as Abalola closes his eyes, believing he is about to die. There, a distraught Tenny discovers her father dead on the ground. As she looks up, she notices Abalola and Gift staring down at her. Oba and his guys hid out after the gang fight. A few people were arrested by the police on trivial offenses. The death of Kazim was welcomed by everyone because Oba knew that he and Olorigun had far too many foes. Oba came to terms with the fact that he needed to remain in Isael Eco to safeguard the people he loved at the conclusion of